Thank you. Thank you very much. Nice to see a few familiar faces and plenty of new ones. So yeah, as she mentioned, so my name is Adam. I'm working with PRG, a local agency here in Eastbourne. The agency was established 43 years ago by this gentleman's father here. So it's been working with many big brands in the area and internationally. And we've been working with small to medium-sized enterprises right through to very large corporates. So there's plenty of experience we've got in-house. So today, what am I going to go through with you about sustainable marketing strategies? So, there we go. So today I'm going to talk you through three main parts. The first part of what I'm going to go through is actually the problem. What is the need that we actually need to address through how we're doing business differently and how we're doing marketing differently. The second part that we'll talk today is essentially opportunity. So that's really looking at, well, what is sustainable marketing? How do we change our practices around how we work in business, how we work in marketing? And the third part, this is the big chunk, is a solution. So we're going to look at here really an action plan, and I'm going to talk you through various models you can use to help really shift your focus in your business. Just quick hands up here though, is anyone any business owners here or marketing managers? Like what are business owners, marketing managers, anything else? Any other weird and quirky, wonderful things?
Not totally.
Cool. So the first part, problem. I'm not going to go into this too much, but obviously look, we've heard so much about the challenges with climate change right now. You guys have probably heard of the 1.5 degrees kind of tipping point that's been outlined by the United Nations. With the way we're going right now, sadly, it's expected that we're actually going to overshoot that. I mean, just the other day, the UN Secretary General said that we're on track for 2.8 degrees at the moment, but they said there is still time. However, we're going to take radical action very quickly. So the other things to look at really is to globally, and not just globally, but nationally, and I'll dive into that a little bit more. There are a lot of problems going on. We can remain too encapsulated in our little bubbles here and forget about really a lot of the stuff that's going on in the world that needs to change. Just a few sobering facts here. 6 people die every minute due to not being able to use access to clean water. 27 football fields of forest we lose every minute. It's a vast amount. Globally, every 40 seconds we lose someone to suicide. So there's big challenges that we've got to be addressing here within the world. Again, like I mentioned, what happens on a national, on a local level, because the world is so interdependent nowadays, we are inevitably going to be impacted by what happens on a global level. Look at what's happened with the wars in Ukraine. That's impacted our wallet right here now. Fuel prices, cost of food, you can't get grain exports from Ukraine. It impacts everything what happens here in our region, in our local lives. And various other things. Obviously here in the UK, we're seeing a lot more challenges with things like mental health. So there's a big need for significant change, and this is really why I'm so passionate about business, is because business is such a powerful mechanism if it's used and directed in the right way. So the other interesting thing from obviously more of a business perspective is now, because of the likes of David Attenborough, the likes of Greta Thunberg, you're seeing a lot more now, and particularly in younger generations, where they are significantly favouring businesses that are doing good, or avoiding businesses that aren't. In one study, it showed that 68% of UK and US consumers would actually avoid using a brand if they got 40 years apart. Or here, 84% said if your company has a poor environmental track record, they'll go somewhere else. So even just purely from a business perspective, working sustainably and operating in a sustainable way, it's like you've got to do it nowadays. If not, you're going to be left far behind by other competitors. So what is the opportunity here? The second part around what sustainable marketing is, sustainable business practices. And why are we doing it? As I mentioned here, governments alone and charities alone aren't. Hey, do you want to take a seat if you can squeeze in somewhere? Sure. Governments alone can't do it. You know, again, the great thing about businesses can be so much more agile, so much more quick to be able to respond and come up with innovative solutions which governments can't. Many charities as well are not set up in a way to be able to solve at a scale that's needed. So business is a solution, but done in the right way. So, and again, a few other points here. 78% in one study, 78% of Gen Z or Z, the generation, they're more likely to buy from a company that gives back to society. You know, we've got to be building this into how we operate, so that we're making a difference, one, but not getting behind what's happening in business. Another quick one I'll touch upon. The Harvard Business Review as well recently cited that even from a risk management perspective, operating sustainably is such a crucial part. You know, if you've got an international supply chain and there's issues going on there, whether it's dirty water, whether there's conflict, if you're not doing something to help out in that region, your supply chain is going to be compromised. So find ways to be working in your environment and community around you. So, touching on a bit more than what is sustainable marketing. You guys may have heard of like green marketing, you guys may have heard of social marketing is another one. I think the key thing I want to emphasize here is it's not just environmental, it's not just green, it's not just environment. As I've reiterated, there's so many causes, so many issues and challenges that we face in the world that we're really doing something about. And what's really key here too now, really, our roles are changing in the responsibility we have. If you want to be in sustainable marketing, really you're more of an ambassador to change. It's not just about what traditional marketing was, it's just what you say. Everything you kind of say out there, these clever taglines or clever phrases you stick out there on social media, billboards or whatever. Now it's very much more about what you do. You speak through what you do now more than what you say. And that's really critical. And that's why as well a lot of trust within the industry has diminished, because people are seeing that mismatch between, well, you're saying this, but what you're doing over here, we don't trust you. You're saying all this nice stuff, but I don't believe you. So that's what's really, really key here now then, is we're in sustainable marketing, like your responsibility spreads like throughout the organization, in that whole operations of everything that goes on. So one way of describing it here is the key thing with marketing is like it's about expressing, communicating a message, right, and meaning through that message. So from a sustainability perspective here, the key way I would define it is it's an exchange of meaning. It's an exchange of meaning aligned with the company's greater purpose at all levels with all stakeholders. It's no longer just about the message you're getting out there externally with a wider audience, but very much more the message that's being communicated internally at every single level, right through from the person that's putting it forward, for example. So, a real quick snapshot. What I'm going to dive into now is really the solution. So, what are some of the strategies here? What are some of the things we need to be considering in how we're operating sustainably? And I'm going to walk you through three-part action plan. First part is assessing where the business is now. The second part is looking at where the business needs to go, how it needs to operate. And then the third part is a bit of a process of how we get there. We're running short on time. I'm aiming to just go really quickly through that, but we'll see how we go. So, the first part is assessing where the business is right now. So, have any of you here heard of B Corp? B Corp businesses, B Corp certified businesses? Yeah? Ignoring these, can any of you name any others that you guys know of or use regularly?
I care.
Yeah?
Health and fitness company, specifically tied in with the NHS in the Southwest to help cancer rehab.
Awesome. There's a lot now. The movement's growing rapidly. Literally just 2 weeks ago, they surpassed 1,500 certified B Corps here in the UK. It started in the US, but what's really powerful about it is essentially, look, just like you've got the fair trade mark, organic certification, it's really a stipulation that says, look, a business adheres to really significant standards in terms of how they operate sustainably. Like I said, not just environmentally, but across the board. And you're seeing it more and more and more. A very local one, Rathfinney, is a winery down in Alfriston, who literally they just certified in April this year. So B Corp movement is a really great thing to look out for, but what they've got here is the business impact assessment. This is actually really the initial assessment that businesses go through to find out where they are in their certification process. And ultimately it's a 200-point scale, of which in order to certify, you've got to gain more than 80 points. And it's broken down into 5 main categories. Governance, i.e. like the legal entity of the business. The workers, like the staff, employees within the business. The community, the wider community, the environment, and then obviously the customer. So I would really, really recommend this. It's a free resource. You can go onto their website. I can share links and things later on. But if you go onto their website, you can find that. It's a really, really powerful tool to actually help you assess where your business is currently right now. A second tool, which I encourage you guys to explore, is the SDG Action Manager, Sustainable Development Goals and Action Manager. So, again, has anyone here heard of the Sustainable Development Goals? I hope. Yeah, it was a set of goals set out by UN member nations back in, well, this lot was back in 2015, aimed to be achieved by 2030. There's 17 of them across every area, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's education, whether it's access to clean water, whether it's reforestation, across the board. This is a really powerful framework which governments, large organizations are using really to channel their efforts. So the B Corp movement created a really powerful online tool to actually assess then really where your business is at or where you kind of need to be in line with the sustainable development goals. So that's a really, really powerful tool and resource I again really recommend you look at, because as well it helps to really begin assessing your actions you're taking, yes, on a smaller scale with actually larger issues, larger problems, and it helps you to begin to consider, right, well, cool, we're operating here in Eastbourne, we're operating here in East Sussex, but how can we influence, what can we do to be making a difference in other part of the world? Because, you know, supply chains nowadays are coming from everywhere, so what can we do on a global level as well? The third part, the third tool I recommend for you guys to use is obviously the business carbon calculator. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure right now to be bringing down our carbon emissions. Ecology is a really awesome business that have a great calculator, but also many great tools that help you guys, help businesses to reduce their carbon footprint, offset some of their carbon emissions as well. So that's a really great tool I really recommend you guys use. So that is essentially 3 tools I really recommend you guys use to assess where the business is right now. From there now, it's like, right, well, where do we want the business to go? What do we want the business to do? How does it need to operate? So what we're going to look at here, this is like an 8-part sustainable marketing model, which I'm going to rush through really, really quickly. So forgive me, I'm trying to give so much in such a short period of time. Again, I can send you everything you want afterwards if you just give me an email address or whatever, because it's a lot to share in such a small space of time. But this is a powerful powerful model which really helps to depict all the kind of different components that you need to be addressing within the business. But yeah, look, wonderfully using the analogy of how nature works. Nature works wonderfully, right? We're the ones that seem to screw everything up. So let's try and learn from them the best way we can. So let's go through this really quickly. The DNA of a business. What does it represent? The DNA represents the type of the species, ultimately, of a tree, of any plant, animal, whatever. So in this analogy, the DNA represents essentially like the business model. What is the business model? But on both levels, a legal entity level, but also like a sort of financial and operational level. So just to describe some of these things a little bit further, very, very briefly, I think a key point to express is when a lot of people think about business that does good, they very often think, right, well, charity is the way you've got to go, like a charity model. And I'm just saying, really, look, yes, we need charities, absolutely, but there's many other models which I think are actually far more effective in actually rallying together resources, rallying together people, rallying together finances to have far greater impact. And that's why as well, for example, the B Corp movement, B Corp for-profit business models, but directed in a sustainable way, can actually have more impact than just charities themselves. So really look at what kind of business model it is you're operating. The key thing as well with the B Corp movement is, if you remember when I spoke about the governance, one of the things with the B Corp movement is they stipulate that actually you must modify essentially your legal founding documents, articles of association, to steer away from what they call shareholder primacy, as in the business is devoted to making things better for shareholders, to what they call stakeholder primacy, which means the business is devoted to ensuring all stakeholders inside the organization, communities, the environment, future generations benefit from the operation of the organization. So that's really, really key. Move on from there. In terms of I've been talking about here like legal models, but in terms of actual operational financial models, and we've all heard of like kind of buy one, give one models. It's quite a common model at the moment, but again, really, really powerful. And I find far better than just charity models, because rather than a charity they're saying, please just give me money so I can go spend it here. It's like, right, well, you want to buy something, so I'll sell it to you, and I'm going to use those resources to go and help someone else over here. So it's a really powerful model which many businesses are using. One Water is a really great example of it. Obviously, yes, there's questions about kind of plastic bottles, and they do a lot beyond that in terms of the water industry. I get it, but the powerful thing is they've taken a chunk of that industry, of that sector, and instead of that money then going to some other shareholders' pockets, that money is going to help children in other corners of the world who don't have access to clean water. So that buy one, give one model is a really, really powerful one to be using. So at this point here is really question like, what is your business model on a legal perspective and on a financial operational perspective? And really think about how can we change it? Moving on very quickly, purpose. The roots of this thing is, the purpose within a business is absolutely critical. As I'm sure we can reference or remember some examples where brands are trying to do like this great campaign over in one area, but then in another area they are damaging the environment, damaging local areas, then people don't trust it. But it's got to start with the actual purpose behind the business. What is the real purpose behind the impact you want to make? And what I will emphasize here is, like I said, that purpose has to be genuine. And even if you're in a business where, like an accountancy, for example, is something that's completely different from making some kind of social environmental impact, there's still ways in which you can use that to be influencing positive change. Or it could be something completely different. Like, for example, maybe you lost a loved one to cancer, to suicide. You can still operate that business, find ways in which you can then help serve those causes, even though you're doing a business something completely alien from what we do. It's just finding the ways, the models, the partnerships to do that. I'm going to rattle through some of this pretty quickly. The trunk, stemming from the roots within the business, is actually the greater purpose is the leadership. The leadership obviously is so critical, because that's what really stems out into everything throughout the whole organization, throughout the business. So what's really key here from a sustainability perspective is to think long term. The quick fix, it never worked, right? Quick fix solutions never worked, only temporarily or seemingly temporarily. But a key thing here as well is business leaders, we must be more conscientious. We must be willing to do actually what's difficult. We must be willing to make decisions that actually may go against the grain or may go against the profit generation though, for example, because it's about the greater one. I'll move on from there very quickly. Internal community here, essentially, this is the branches of the tree. From the leadership stems out to the branches. And within the organization, what that represents is the people, the internal people, the workers. And just really simply what I say here is what's so key is just building trust, right? If you want to be building trust externally, but you're not doing internally, then the whole thing's flawed. So a really powerful book I recommend you read here is called The Speed of Trust by one of, it's a phenomenal development for individual and organization in the States. I won't go into any more of that. Campaigns, now this is a really, really important one. So as I said, traditionally campaigns are all about basically what you're saying out there. What you're saying in your social media posts, what you're saying in newspaper articles. But what's really key here now with sustainable businesses, obviously you're trying to get out there and make a difference, right? So there's two levels of campaigns we need to be considering. Our impact campaigns and then our traditional communication campaigns. So when it comes to our impact campaigns, if you've got a business that's devoted to be doing good, you then get out there and do that through the initiatives and campaigns you set up in your local, well, it doesn't have to be local, but external regions. But again, this is so powerful. This is what people forget is, like, if you're trying to come together with someone, if I'm trying to come together to you and we're trying to get out there to actually make a difference, like, the connection that's formed, the relationship that's formed, the trust that's formed with other individuals, and because you're aligned around a greater cause than just yourself, it opens up so many doors. It's such a powerful way to actually help you as well, though, to be generating natural, organic communication. If you're doing good, people will think about it. Genuine word of mouth will happen. Media will pick up on it. So you're going to start with these impact campaigns beyond just the communication campaigns. However, on a communication campaign, obviously the traditional kind of content strategy which many people have used, we've used it in the past, still do to some degree though, is obviously people, place, product. 3 pillars of content: people, place, product. And really I'm going to kind of spin it on its head a little bit. The key, most important one is obviously educating around the purpose. Is if you're educating people around a particular cause that you're devoted to, people begin to want to listen to you because you're essentially a source of insightful information that something really touches their hearts. So you have to be educating really around your greater purpose. And then when it comes to these other former traditional pillars, people, place, product, obviously, an important thing I'll express here, there's something I want to share, but I'm kind of running out of time with what I want to share. But what I will emphasize here is, when you are talking about your product, what's more important is you're talking about not the product itself, but the impact the product is making. That's a huge, huge difference. For example, just yesterday, one of our clients, they're a plastics company, Condell Plastics, and I was walking around their factory, we were doing some filming for them, and had this plastic tube here. I was like, well, what does that do? And they said, well, it's actually used to be driven into the seabed to take core samples from the sea to actually help analyze what is going on with coastal erosions. And I was thinking, that's cool. Here it's just a plastic tube, but it's actually doing these cool things in society to help us know what's going on. That's what I was saying, just trying to sell a plastic tube, it's pretty boring, right? But when you sell the impact, the cause, or what it's for, it's so much more powerful. Yeah? Lastly, I'm going to move on really quickly. Greenwashing, bluewashing, I think we've all heard about that, right? Or maybe not, but anyways, greenwashing is ultimately, if you're a business, and it's happening a lot of larger corporates where you're basically, in one corner you're showing, hey, look, well, we've got these new shoes that are made from recycled plastic, but yet in this corner, you've still got child slaves in your supply chain. Then that's where trust within the markets is broken significantly, because they're like, well, you're trying to cover up all the crap you're doing by saying you're doing nice stuff, but look at what you are doing. So that's what greenwashing is. Keep away from it. Honesty is the best policy here across the board anyway, but this is where too, if the business makes mistakes, if there's challenges, actually be honest about it. I think people will warm to and appreciate, actually, look, we're not doing great in this area, but when you tell them what you are doing, and you demonstrate to them what you are doing to improve that area, you build trust with them. So very powerful. Lastly, there's so much more I want to share, but 30 minutes isn't enough for me. I first thought, God, 30 minutes are ages, but I want more. So if I do run over a little bit into lunch, please forgive me. If you want to leave, don't worry, I won't jump on you. Products and services, so this is the fruits of the tree. The fruits that the tree generates. And what I want to emphasize here is you've got to be measuring the actual impact your services are having, even from any level, even if it's just a traditional product or service. If you're selling it, but then it doesn't actually get used in the way you intended, ultimately something's going to fail at some point. And the same with the good you're doing. There's been so many cases where governments and businesses have had great intentions to do stuff, but they've actually gone in and screwed things up even more than it was before. So you've got to really understand what is the measurable, quantifiable metric that we're going to use to measure your impact, and keep on top of it all the time. The capillaries here within the tree, what does this represent? For me, in a tree, it represents what goes on throughout the whole tree. And in this analogy, what it represents is the operations, what goes on throughout the entire process. And in this sense, here, so it's across the board, financial, people, material, systems. And I want to just express one here. One of our clients, Longman Brewery, and you've enjoyed some of the nice beers. The great thing here is, they kind of drilled into being sustainable in every area, every corner, every aspect of operations within that business. How can you do it better? How can you do it more sustainably? So they're really hot on really powerful regenerative farming techniques. They've got solar panels, electric vehicles. The spent grain from the brewing process goes back to actually feed the cows on the farm. So from an operational perspective, you've really got to look at, where across the board. And it's so powerful because very often it helps you to innovate, to find ways, and actually you can reduce costs and reduce waste far better than you were operating beforehand. So, I know I'm short on time, forgive me. What I'm going to say lastly here is, in terms of around this tree, the ecosystem around the tree, what does that represent? It represents everything externally around your organization. It represents your markets, it represents your other clients, it represents, the powerful one, your potential partners. I think this is the key here is, again, like in nature, where everything is utterly interconnected. But the way we operate in small businesses generally tend to operate is really quite siloed, quite on their own. I'm sure Martin can testify about this as well. But you're so limited with just the resources you have. So many people as well, especially around good causes, actually they're all trying to do the same thing, but they're not working with one another. In fact, very often competing with one another, trying to make a difference in the same area. It's utterly mental. It's really, really crazy. So look at your strategic partnerships. Look at who are the people out there that as well have got the culture and the interest that you want to be connected with. So I do want to go into more. I know I need to finish, but I'm going to really rattle through this really, really quickly. This is the third part. So once you've looked at more the future where we want to go, this is looking at more the steps of how we want to get there. And this is, I'm going to rattle through it really, really quickly. Just a strategic planning model. There's many out there, there's many kind of variations of it, but there's one in particular I want to describe here called the theory of change, the strategic planning model. It starts in the center, obviously looking at like, what is the big vision of where you want to go? What is the solution? What is the problem, that you're trying to solve? And really the way this works, it actually works back. So if you're trying to get, you're trying to get over here, it's looking at, right, well, what is the bigger picture? And then working back to the right. If I need to be here, what is the sequence of steps I need to get to be able to get there from where I am now? The way most businesses operate, they kind of stand here where they are in the present and kind of just look a little bit beyond the horizon. And you kind of need both. You do need both to operate together, but you've got to be starting with a bigger picture, particularly on this when we talk about the difference we want to make. So the next step is looking at milestone goals. Where's the big place we want to get to? And then try and chunk that down into different big significant milestone goals over the period of years and how to get there. Next one is basically then identify, well, in order to achieve those milestone goals, what are the actions you need to achieve those? I.e., what initiatives you need to set up? Or it could even be, what series of products and services do you need to sell in one area to help you get to a milestone that may just be a stepping stone to move on to sell another series of set of products and services. Finally, obviously look at timelines. A big one here is, morning. A big one here is resources.
Shake my arm.
What resources does a business need? And resources across the board, people just think as well, like money. Like money is the big resource I need. But there's many other more kind of intermediary resources that you get, because ultimately, in a lot of cases, not actually the money you need, it's the facilities you need, it's the partnership that you need. So start thinking more kind of creatively about resources you need, not just money. Really, money, you don't need it. You have the money to get something else, generally speaking. What is the other thing that you need? Find out there and build a partnership with those people together. And I'm really going to finish now, I promise, I'm so sorry. A really important one here is, look, what are the assumptions that you make in your business strategy? Because it's very easy, right? Again, so many people have, I've got this great idea, we're going to do this thing, but they kind of get in there and find out, well, actually, it doesn't work, or no one wants it. So I think what's really key is to be able to actually really kind of pinpoint what those assumptions are. And then the next step here is really key. Lean testing, and you may have heard of the Lean Startup. There's a chap, Eric Rees, who wrote a phenomenal book and implemented a lot of great strategies there and how to do it. It's basically a form of kind of basically testing that's been used a lot in the sort of software development industry, where rather than kind of having this big idea and spending ages and building the initial version, spending months and putting a lot of resources into building that initial version, only to find that actually doesn't work or only to find it's not needed. The point is, basically, what are the small, they call the minimum viable product? What's the smallest kind of unit that you can create of something that you want to test to see if it works? So if it's a little pilot, if it's a certain cause you want to champion, a difference you want to make, what is at least a small little pilot program you can run somewhere to actually help you assess, right, well, is my idea of the solution actually going to work in this area? If not, great, learn it as soon as possible. So that's the key thing, test those assumptions as soon as you can, so you're not wasting years and plenty of resources just to only find out that it's literally been a waste. So, that's it. I'm sorry I'm taking more of your time. It's lunch. I guess if you have any questions, come speak with me now. If you want, kind of grab me, we'll be on stand. But yeah, thank you guys very much. Sustainable one.